So Mojang released a brand new Minecraft Bedrock update this week, and it's been quite controversial because it changed the barrel crafting recipe from being crafted with sticks to being crafted with planks. This is technically bringing the Java and Bedrock versions into parity with each other, but in a way where the Java version stays the same and the Bedrock version just gets worse. This is exactly what they did with the Shattered Savannah, as this comment mentions. It used to be incredible on Bedrock, but they had to make it match Java, and it's exactly what they did with cobwebs and strings, and it's exactly what they did with horses no longer being able to fit in boats. This is an epidemic that Minecraft has of bringing parity to Minecraft by making the Bedrock version worse, and I've got some bad news for you if you're worried about it, because 1.20.20, the next update, has a beta out that's just made over 200 parity changes. It is a wild number of changes they've made to explosions, to crafting, to sleeping, and yes, sadly, even Mr. Gaming Wolf, even to block breaking. This is a hugely controversial update, I think, for lots of good reasons, but does it actually deserve to be? Is this update a good thing? Let's go into each and every change, and let's go and actually show them to you, and then hopefully you can decide for yourself by the end, and we can dive into whether Mojang should be really aiming for this. But for now, let's talk about what is in this update, because like I say, it affects explosions, which is quite a big one, but it affects in a much more serious way recipe unlocking. This used to be an experimental toggle, it's just been added in 1.20.10, but it will be the default option after this update comes out. This means that when you start a brand new world without having any options selected, you will no longer have to turn on an experimental option to have recipe unlocking. Instead, recipe unlocking is done by a little setting over here, which you can turn on like that. This will be turned on by default in the future, I do believe, but for right now, it means that when you jump in the water, that recipe unlock is something you can do without experimental options. This is a big change, and I'm surprised they're doing it so fast, to be totally honest with you, but it is the way that 1.20 is intending to go. If we get dirt, will we get a recipe? I'm surprised we didn't get any coarse dirt recipe for that, but yeah, the point is they've now changed the way that crafting works in that way, but they've also changed the way that crafting works in survival, and indeed the search field works in survival, because now when you type things in, it will only let you find things if they start with either of the words having that. So the example they give is if you type in E, or I guess Tor, you'll find torches and redstone torches, because this is redstone space torch, but you won't find the daylight detector. If you were to type in, say, on, you won't find stone and stone bricks and everything else. You'll find warped fungus on a stick and carrot on a stick, because that's one of the words in there. I think this is actually a fairly interesting change. I was a little worried that I thought like, well, in creative that would suck, but in creative you still have the full access. It's just for survival players to be very easy and be like, I want just a torch. I don't want to see things that have that somewhere in the name, like torch flower, which might be a big upgrade. Not that you should be crafting torch flowers. I think that's a cursed recipe. Speaking of cursed recipe, we've got a cursed recipe for new features in this update, because they've changed the mining time on a number of blocks to match the Java version instead of being Bedrock exclusive. They say on the changelog they've changed 188 blocks, which is a very dramatic claim. However, as I understand it, they've actually changed the mining or the explosion resistance for 188 blocks. I'm going to show you every single block on this list, which is just mining time change, as well as how it's changed, and in the case of the very big ones, I've got exclamation marks to let you know when there's a very, very big change you should know about. Some of these are objectively positive, some of these are a little more mixed, and I want to just go through them all right now, because they've changed the mining time on the activator rail. By the way, I'm using a netherite pickaxe with no enchantments. This feels wrong, right? Like getting to this stage in the game, but not having enchantments. As you can see, this is something you probably wouldn't notice either way. I would say you're definitely going to notice the stairs getting a lot quicker to mine. That is a huge change down. I think that's a positive. The breaking time of bamboo has gone from 2 seconds to 1 second, which is, in my opinion, quite a positive. The bamboo shoot is also going to take a second. This is weird to me. I'm so used to these breaking instantly, it doesn't even feel right to have to break them in this time. This was meant to be a real bamboo. As you can see, bamboo itself is... No, actually, that still looks like it takes 2 seconds. So that's slightly broken over there. Just like how the bell is broken in terms of its mining time now, that is a huge increase. All of these times seem to be not using the diamond pickaxe, by the way. The drip leaf now requires a break. It used to be instant. Now you have to, like, slowly get it, which is quite fascinating. The campfire has gone from 5 seconds down to 2 seconds. That is a huge change. I guess I won't be getting this back. By the way, I laid out every single one of these blocks, and now I'm mining them all, but it's going to be quite satisfying anyway. So yeah, we also have the composter going from 2 to 6 seconds. That is a huge change that, again, they say on the changelog they have made, but in my, if I'm looking at this correctly, it looks as though it takes about 2 seconds still, so they want to change it, but maybe haven't done so far. The coral has gone from 7 seconds to 1.5, but again, I'm not really seeing that. Also, looks like I've killed my coral. But yeah, these are the changes that they've made to all of the blocks. This, as you can see, is a substantial increase in the time it takes. but this makes sense to me. This should take as long as the rest of the blocks. This taking 1.5 seconds is really, really weird to me. Like, why would we change these stairs to go to 0.5 blocks, but then change these stairs to go to 1.5. It just feels a little bit weird. But anyway, there's a little bit of inconsistency across all of this that you'll start to notice. The mining time for end brick is going to substantially increase, so get all your end bricks in right now, clearly. Yeah, you can see that is a dramatic change that's being made to a lot of these blocks. Pistons going up probably actually makes sense. Even though this is making the game a little worse, I think it's in a way where actually you want it to take a few seconds to mine a piston. You don't want to accidentally break one of these, just like how you might not want to accidentally break any of these. They're all moving to match Java, sometimes in a positive direction, sometimes a negative direction, but it all balances out about the same. The coolest one though is scaffolding. Scaffolding instantly breaks now, which is very, very intriguing. Like this is one of those Java features I genuinely didn't know about, and I'm glad that they have decided to change with. Wait, why was the undyed shulker box on the list as a different item to the dyed shulker box? Is there ever an implication that these things would have different resistances to mining or explosions? Anyway, my point is to say that they've decided to change all of these, but there's a few blocks they can't yet decide on, and all of those blocks are right here. I'm going to show you the Java and the Bedrock times, and maybe why it's so controversial they decide to do them. It's a very interesting one, but first I want to show you the changes they made to explosions. So one such example of this is the ancient debris. It already had enough, blast resistance to survive free TNT at the same time on all sides. As you can see right here, all the free TNT goes off, and the ancient debris is just fine. However, they have changed a few blocks which will make a big difference, and one of these is the end brick, and I am excited to blow up these end bricks. They have made a big change there, but first, we're going to obviously have to go back to previous Minecraft and see what it looks like over there. Something else that you won't have in previous Minecraft, by the way, just to, mention something positive before we do an explosion. Minecraft has changed the way that sleeping works. In a multiplayer world, by default, every single player needs to sleep, which is ridiculous. You have 8 people in this world. Someone's all the way over there by the lighthouse. Someone's over there by the village. Someone's by that Mesa Mountain, and someone's under the Minecraft sign. And only 2 of those people have beds. And so now the other 2 people, who don't have beds, can't sleep, but also they can't skip through the night. Kind of something they wouldn't care about if they're running around, but the guys who have beds would care. So this is now going to be a game rule, which is only accessible right now via the command line input. So game rule, and then it's player sleeping percentage. You can now change the number of players required for sleep. If you want 50, half of players to sleep, have a consensus on whether you sleep, you can set it to 50. If you want it to be any number of players sleeping, you can set it to 1, assuming you have fewer than 100 players. And if you want it to be like, if everyone besides one dick decides to sleep, we should make it so it's 90, which means 9 out of 10 people must be sleeping, and then it'd be fine. I would say most people are probably going to go with 1 or 25 or somewhere on the lower end of that spectrum, but I love that you can pick any value you want. 73. That's right. If there are 72 out of 100 players on a Minecraft server, then they won't be able to sleep, which is, because they need to get a 73rd to be able to sleep. That sounds like a fun concept to test. Is that next round review idea? Social experiment with sleeping? Anyway, let's come back to explosions now, because we need to go back to a previous update, which is to say, not the beta. So here I am in Minecraft 1.20.10, the current version of Minecraft, and I want to show you something fun. I've made a 5x5x5 cube of endstone bricks. Now I'm going to explode this TNT in a 4x5x5 cube, and as you're going to see, it all vanishes. Whoa. That's actually more than I was expecting. So I guess I need to do this experiment with a slightly bigger cube for this to be fair. We're going to detonate the TNT, and then we're going to see how much of a 7x7x7 cube it breaks. As you can see, the inner layer is just entirely gone. Endstone brick seems to destroy at a rate more akin to dirt than stone, which is very, very bizarre. This is one of those parity changes that I think they can make in earnest. Also, a similar one I think they made that's pretty good is when you type in, say, fill, because if you want to make a set of endstone bricks, you might want to make stained glass, right? Stained glass in the current version of Bedrock is just one item that it's white by default, and if you want another color, you have to type in I'll type in the color using my offensive American spelling of the word, and then I'll type in red. This is what you have to do genuinely. Wait, we have to type in red in big quotation marks, then one of these, and then there we go, we've got a red cube. But this is changed in the current beta. By the way, I hope you don't mind me exploiting the battle minigame maps for a little bit of nostalgia in the background of these videos. I was working on a video recently where I went through every single one of these maps, and so I just kind of have them laying around, and I feel like they're just such perfect backgrounds for anything you do, because they bring me back to a happy place. Speaking of happy places, let me show you how red stained glass works right now, because it's much better than this. Look at this, red stained glass is now just an item in its own right. Again, a real common sense move, just like how it's a common sense move. I'm finally gonna do it. I'm gonna explode the TNC, and I'm gonna show you what it's meant to look like if it matches Java. It has a blast resistance of 9 now, which means instead of destroying the entire cube bar 4 blocks, it destroyed a lot closer to actually just 4 blocks, right? If we put this one back, because I mined it, we got 5 blocks back from, which means we probably mined about 15 or 20, which is much more realistic than 125 for something that is meant to be one of the sturdiest blocks in the game. Indeed, the mining time, I think, is something that feels a bit wrong to me, but I understand where they're coming from with it at least, so all of these mining time and explosion time changes are ones that I can just about understand. However, I do want to say, before we move into, moving into whether this is good or not, I want to mention that I actually give them props for admitting they aren't sure whether they should take the Bedrock or the Java version for each of these blocks. So this is if the sign is in yellow, it'll be for Bedrock here, and if the sign is in pink and on a Java block, there isn't actually a Java block, so I just went white, then you'll see that this is the Java mine time. All of these blocks, all of these walls and slabs and double slabs that are basically stone related, take 2 seconds to mine on Bedrock, 1.5 on Java, which is the correct overall. That's something they're actually going to take a minute to work out and consider. The same is true for sandstone walls. It's 2 seconds on Bedrock and 0.8 seconds on Java. That's very, very weird. They haven't made changes to these yet, and the biggest one, you'll be crucially most important to know, is they're not sure whether they should change the slabs and the walls and the double slabs, or whether they should change the obsidian and the crying obsidian. It is 35 seconds as a base on Bedrock and 50 as a base on Java. Although seriously, it takes a lot less than that. It's more like 2.5 or 3.5. Anyway, they've significantly crying obsidian takes a real long time to mine apparently. But yeah, they have actually decided that they're not going to change these immediately because the mine time on Java is just kind of ridiculous for obsidian. Arguably deliberately so. But when they brought it to Bedrock with a better mining time, people like that one. And so is it better to go with the lower time from Bedrock or the harder time from Java? It's actually hard for them to decide, and I do understand where they're coming from with all of these. The sandstone blocks taking 0.8 on Bedrock and a full 2 seconds on Java. There's a very big difference, and I actually appreciate them saying that they're having a hard time making these decisions, and I think using the community would be a good guideline for these. Ultimately, a lot of mining time changes are just fine. Some of them are, a little questionable, but most of these are pretty fine. The explosion resistance changes, they're all pretty fine. I think even the changes to, sleep, that's pretty good. The changes to crafting, recipe unlocking, should always be off by default until there's a significant majority of people who want it. But this comment from GMD, the one guy eyes, actually raises a really interesting point because they say the cobweb string recipe was OP before, and instead of getting 9 string like you do on Bedrock or 0 like you do on Java, they should compromise and just make it free on both, or 3 to 4 at max, and that's it really. But I think this is the sort of solution that is, designed by committee, trying to get everyone in a room to be perfectly happy, kind of results in a compromise where no one is happy. I think that the cobweb recipe should be 9 string. That makes perfect sense to me. I could see a world where it's 1 string, but there's no world where you should just compromise into saying that, yeah, 3 to 4 is perfect. And I think even Java players would agree that 9 string is actually a great recipe for those who know it. It is a big improvement to the game, and I think that, this is something that seems to be happening a lot with Minecraft decisions. In the 4J version, days of the game, we had one studio who just kind of decided how parity decisions between Java and Bedrock should be made. There was no new combat on the new console editions, but they did have the faster healing when you eat some food. So if I eat some cooked beef right now, my favorite food with a funky name on Bedrock, if I eat some of this, it will heal me at the normal rate, but it would heal me faster on console, even though they didn't have the offset of the new combat. I think you can make changes like this that are arguably controversial and might be crazy for some people, but you can actually start to make changes that make the game a better place if you're willing to just do that. And that's something I think Minecraft is a little unwilling to do. I think that most of the people who develop the game are big fans of Java. That's the version that most people who get into Minecraft start playing, but they don't really necessarily understand why Bedrock people would have the opinions they do regarding explosions and regarding stuff like this. And it also, that's why I think there are very few people, in the boat debate, should the boat have a shovel in the recipe or not. A lot of people are torn, but the majority of Bedrock players think it's a good thing to remove it. There are very few people that, there's no one who thinks that removing the shovel has ruined the game. Wait, sorry. There's only one person who thinks that removing the shovel would ruin Minecraft, apparently. And, outside of this one guy, I mean, it ultimately is, like, actually, yeah, you get used to it the Java way, and it's good. Making changes like this is great, but if there is a downside to the community that you are changing it for, in this case, there is a downside to the Bedrock community for crafting barrels. There is a downside to the Bedrock community of people who use horses and boats. If you just try to argue for parity, you might be harming real people just to help imaginary people. Sure, that person is being appeased by, changes to all sorts of things, but you might be hurting real Minecraft players who get used to something a certain way, who assume that is the only way it's ever been because they might not have ever played Java, and that is something that is especially common between Java and Bedrock players. Most players don't play both editions. They play whatever's available on the platform they have, or if you've been playing for 10 years, you play the version you first saw in a Minecraft video from a guy with a concerning accent whose name sounds a little funky in retrospect. But, anyway, the point is that is how people decide which version of the game they're going to play. And I think that as a result, Minecraft should focus on the bigger parity changes that would be positive for either version. I think adding horses and boats to Java, positive. It should be a higher priority. Adding, for example, we've got the TNT explosions right here. Did you notice that I mined all of these blocks and I got 5 endstone bricks black? On Java, you get every single block that you destroy right back to you. That should be a priority over changing the, blast resistance of ancient debris. That should be a priority over changing how many seconds a piston takes to mine, in my opinion, because that is the sort of change that will really affect people, whether it's because they watch YouTube videos or they talk with their friends. But if you have secondhand experience in Minecraft, you'll be really confused and actually quite anguished at the change to TNT in a way that you're never going to care about when you go to mine a set of quartz stairs and you notice that it takes, rather a better example, you go to mine a solid stone block and you notice that it takes 0.5 seconds fewer than it should. No one is mentally anguished, no one is bothered, no one even notices that. I'm going to be honest with you, I wouldn't have known this was a difference if I hadn't seen it in one of these changelogs, and that's why I think, even though it's good to make these big strides, I also think having real usable changes at the same time is important, and hopefully Mojang can do that. Also, just in case you want my opinion, I think that the Bedrock times for most of these things are better, but I do think that there should be some real consistency as to how different blocks are mined. Why is it that this takes 2 seconds to mine, but this one, I don't understand why these would take 0.8 seconds to mine on the Java version, and this would take 1.5. So yeah, consistency is a good thing for either edition, and if you can bring consistency together without harming most of the players, that would be great. But I think if you're going to make a decision you think is going to be controversial, just poll the players first. This is something that I know is like a big taboo in game design because the users aren't always right. A lot of users will have wrong opinions, but RuneScape, 2007 RuneScape does this with no real problems, and I think Minecraft could do this as well. If you are a game that believes in democracy so much that you're willing to add this giant guy because of it, if you're a game that believes in democracy, believe that your players will make the right decisions, and if they don't make the right decisions, then your players are still making a decision and getting engaged with the game, which is why I think that, not for minor block changes like this, but for horses in boats, for example, or for the way that they, the shattered savanna grass, or even for all sorts of other changes like TNT, just ask the community what they want, and you'll actually see what the end response should be. For now, I'm mostly just mad that you can't put wool in a furnace on the Bedrock version. I assumed you could. I didn't realize that was a Java exclusive until it was too late. For now, you can only put wool in the top slot, but then you put something in the bottom slot, and it does nothing anyway, so why do you even let me do that, game? What is the point? Anyway, speaking of what is the point, I hope you all enjoyed this video. I hope you're not that one guy who is mad about the shovel. My overall take is that Mojang really does need to consult the community better if they're going to make big changes, and I'm glad that they're basically doing that with the Obsidian, which is something that I think I would love to see Java players vote on, whether they should get the Bedrock mining time or not. And I would love to see the same Bedrock equivalent for features they think would be controversial here, whether it's new combat, whether it's faster healing, whatever it is, hardcore mode even, or custom superflats. If you need to ask the community, if you're worried about how you should do these things and you want to do it delicately, just ask. I think people might just give you a surprising response. Either way, I hope you found this video interesting. Don't forget to like, favorite, subscribe, go to Ibxtoycat.store to get yourself some great merch, or check out my live stream if you've enjoyed it, because I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.